So the quarterback media circus is once again sadly in full effect as the few remaining teams that really need a quarterback are trying to figure out who they can get. Well, some of these guys are probably loving the attention more than others, and in today's video, I'll break down the most likely landing spots for a couple of quarterbacks along with their most recent updates, the Bills adding a bunch of pieces to their roster, the 49ers in cap hell, and so much more right after. Alright, first up, the Buffalo Bills have been busy the past couple of days, making several moves that are really worth mentioning. Earlier this afternoon, they sent cornerback Kaiir Elam and a 2025 6th-round pick to the Cowboys in exchange for a 2025 5th and a 2026 7th. That's a little bit going on there, but Elam was a former first-round pick of the Bills back in 2022, and he's been pretty disappointing in his first 3 years in the league, if I'm just gonna be honest here. Since 2022, Kaiir Elam ranks 127th out of 129 corners that have played at least 800 snaps in pass breakups with just 4. And that's just one example of how he hasn't lived up to the first round hype. So honestly, good for the Bills, I guess, for at least getting a bit of draft capital out of him instead of having him walk for nothing once his rookie deal expires next season. The Cowboys, meanwhile, love taking shots on formerly high drafted players that haven't panned out. Jonathan Mingo, Andrew Booth, and the list goes on. And shoot, maybe a change of scenery will do Elam some good after all. He's only 23 years old still and can, in theory, improve. And just like magic, I'm going to sidetrack to the Cowboys here for a moment. We'll get back to Buffalo, but the Cowboys made another trade after this for another former first-round pick. Pretty funny, but I do like this pick a bit better, and that is former Titans outside linebacker Kenneth Murray Jr. The Cowboys will get him in exchange for a late-round pick swap, and I do believe take on some of the second year of his contract that he signed last offseason with the Titans. He signed a 2-year, $15.5 million deal, ended up starting 14 games for them and racked up 95 tackles and 3.5 sacks, but notably struggled in pass coverage. So, after being a potential release candidate, the Titans were instead able to trade him. I mean, the Cowboys just can't help themselves with these former first-round picks. Anyway, that means Kenneth Murray Jr. is out for Tennessee. Back to the Bills, Kaiir Elam is out for Buffalo, but pass rusher Joey Bosa is in. He's signing a 1-year deal worth up to $15.6 million. With the Bills, some had speculation he would actually be joining his brother in San Francisco, especially after they released Leonard Floyd yesterday, who had the second most sacks on the team in 2024. But nope, Joey's headed to Buffalo, joining a defense that didn't have a single player get over 10 sacks last year. So maybe he will in 2025. Von Miller, their second leading sack man, was released a couple days ago in an effort to free up some cap space, so I imagine they'll be leaning on the newly acquired Bosa quite a bit. The guy just needs to stay healthy. He's missed 23 games over the last 3 seasons, which is obviously a concern, and also why they only signed him to a 1-year deal. He's only 29 years old, though, even though it feels like he's been in the league forever. So if he can just stay healthy, he should be a solid addition for a Bills team that once again has Super Bowl aspirations. To further beef up their D-line, they signed former Steelers defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi to a 1-year, $8.3 million deal, which is a good get considering the 30-year-old had a pretty productive season in 2024. Then, Buffalo opted to re-sign safety Damar Hamlin to a 1-year deal. He's a guy whose story we all know, and it's been pretty cool that he literally came back from the dead. I mean, they brought him back in 2023, earning a starting role on the team in 2024, and he's now back for the 2025 season as well. The Bills weren't done there either, as they inked wide receiver Joshua Palmer, the former Charger, to a 3-year, $36 million deal, which is a decent get for them. They locked in Khalil Shakir late in February to a 4-year, $60.2 million contract, featuring $32 million guaranteed, but they still need wide receiver help, as Mac Hollins is now a Patriot on a 2-year deal of his own. Palmer is still a young buck at just 25 years old, had back-to-back 500-yard seasons and even nearly 800 yards back in 2022. And then they also signed running back Ty Johnson to a 2-year, $5 million deal, which is fine for their running back room, and I still have no idea what they're going to do about James Cook, who's on the last year of his rookie deal and wants $15 million per year, and honestly, he may want more now after the recent pay raise Saquon Barkley got. Well, maybe that's possible, maybe not. Either way, some of the moves they have made was helped a bit by Josh Allen's recent contract extension. Last weekend, he signed a new $330 million contract over 6 years with an NFL record $250 million guaranteed. So per year, that's $55 million, which, yeah, is a lot, but he could have easily reset the quarterback market if he wanted to and become the highest paid at his position. I mean, the guy is literally coming off of an MVP season and easily deserves more than Dak Prescott's $60 million per year, which is currently the most in NFL history. However, he agreed on $55 million per year, which has him tied for the second highest annual value with Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, and Jordan Love. I mean, out of those 4 quarterbacks, give me Josh Allen, with Joe Burrow, of course, right behind him. Anyway, Josh Allen spoke with the media today, and apparently he told his agent during these negotiations that, quote, if this has any impact on the cap, let's find a way to not do that. Then, when he was straight up asked if he took less money from the Bills, he said, what's $5 million more going to do for my life right now? I live a pretty good life, got a house, got a car, we're good. Well, you know you're making a lot of money when you say, what's $5 million more going to do for my life right now? $5 million would change my life. But I definitely respect his mindset and willingness to take less than he could have in order to give his team a better chance at winning. It's something we've seen some of the greats do. Brady did it basically every chance he could. And so is Patrick Mahomes up to this point with his 10-year wild contract that he has. In fact, while Mahomes isn't necessarily taking a pay cut here, he and Chris Jones both agreed to restructure their contracts earlier this morning. The team freed up over $49 million by doing so, which gave them the space they needed to sign key free agents like Jalen Moore and Christian Fulton and have some left over for other moves that's going to be needed. And this is a pretty hilarious visual after the Mahomes restructure. Look at his upcoming cap hits. He now carries just a $28 million cap hit for 2025, which is pretty good. But look at 2026 and 2027. $78 million and $74 million? Hell nah. Fear not, though, Chiefs fans, because they are absolutely going to rework his deal again, or maybe even restructure him again to just keep pushing money down the road. But this is just an example of how Mahomes and the Chiefs have continuously restructured his contract in order to reduce cap hits and allow the team to make some moves. In fact, this is now the 3rd time that Mahomes has agreed to a contract restructure since, I think, 2021, and definitely won't be the last. Now, speaking of cap hits and contracts and all that, we've got to talk about a certain team that appears to be in cap hell. That would be the 49ers. I talked about more of their moves in yesterday's video, but they have lost so many players this offseason, from trading away Deebo Samuel to releasing veteran players, and then, of course, a handful of them also departing in free agency. Get this, over half of their starters from Super Bowl 58 are no longer on the team. That's insane. Well, part of the problem is they have around $80 million in dead money on the books for 2025, the most in the league, and so it seems they are embracing this upcoming season as a clean up the books type of year. With that said, they've been able to dish out a couple of affordable contracts to some interesting names. They signed tight end Luke Farrell on the first day of free agency to a 3-year deal worth up to $20.25 million. The guy hasn't caught a single touchdown pass in his 4 years in the league, but he's regarded as one of the best blocking tight ends in the game. So having him paired up with George Kittle could be pretty nasty in the run game. Then obviously we know who their running back is, Christian McCaffrey. They then added another piece on offense last night to help out, with that being wide receiver Demarcus Robinson. He's coming to town on a 2-year deal worth $9.5 million, 6 of it fully guaranteed. Maybe not the sexiest signing in the world, but it's also extremely cheap, and he's been a fantastic wide receiver 3 or 4. He's coming off a great year as well with the Rams, finishing with over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns, both career highs. They still have Brandon Ayuk, who's coming back from that nasty injury last year, and I guess there's still a possibility they could trade him. Maybe. They also have Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings in the pass game, so those guys, along with George Kittle, is honestly pretty solid for a receiving group, even without Deebo Samuel. Now, the 49ers also made another move, and this is featuring their running back room. Jordan Mason, he could be back as well. He is a restricted free agent, but San Francisco hit him with a second-round tender. That means they just offered him $5.3 million, but other suitors can offer Mason more than that, and if the 49ers do not match the higher offer, they'll be compensated with a second-round pick, and that team will obviously then get Jordan Mason. And you never know, some may feel like he's worth that because of the season he had last year with CMC out, but only time will truly tell. In other news, last night, the trusty veteran and soon-to-be one-day Hall of Famer DeAndre Hopkins signed with the Baltimore Ravens on a 1-year, $6 million deal. I know the guy is 32 years old now and is coming off a couple of more down years between injuries and lack of production. He was traded to the Chiefs midway through last season. He kind of made an impact there, and then in the back half of the season fizzled out. But I can't lie, it's still weird to see DHop sign for just $6 million. That's the nature of the NFL. One day you're worth everything, then the next, father time hits you and you're not worth nearly as much. But hey, if he can stay healthy, he should provide the offense with an added wrinkle, no pun intended with the age thing, and he's also a big-bodied receiver, which is something the Ravens don't really have, at least in the wide receiver room. What's kind of funny about this too is that DHop posted this picture on social media back in 2020 with the caption saying, "How many touchdowns would this trio total?" Well, we're about to find out in 2025. Another receiver that will be on a new team next year is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He signed a one-year deal with the Seattle Seahawks worth up to $5.5 million. If you guys remember, he was on the Bills to start last season, had just 2 catches in 6 games. They then released him in October. Well, he turned around and signed with the Saints and played 8 games there and had one of the wildest 3-game stretches I can remember. Look at this stat line, for example, from weeks 10 to week 13. 3 catches for 109 yards and 2 touchdowns. 2 catches for 87 yards and 1 touchdown. Then again, 2 catches for 36 yards and a score. Those were the only touchdowns he caught all season, by the way, and he did it within a 3-game span. What's pretty cool about this is that last season, Clint Kubiak was the Saints offensive coordinator, and now he just took the Seahawks offensive coordinator job. So those two will be reunited in Seattle. I mean, he obviously played a role in getting MVS there, and they will hope to recreate some of the success they had in New Orleans, and they'll be attempting to do so with the newly signed Sam Darnold. As of right now, MVS is probably the second best, or at least the second most proven receiver on the team behind Jackson Smith and Jigba after they traded away DK Metcalf and released the longtime vet Tyler Lockett. No disrespect to MVS, but I highly doubt they roll into the season with him as wide receiver 2, so look for them to make another signing in free agency or target a receiver early in the draft. And speaking of the Seahawks, 4-time Pro Bowler defensive end Demarcus Lawrence, the 32-year-old pass rusher, just got a huge contract from them. 3 years, worth up to $42 million. I mean, holy shit. I want what Seattle is smoking. At least that's what I thought until it's only $18 million guaranteed, so false alarm. But still, he's been pretty productive in his 11 seasons with Dallas and hopes to have a couple more years of solid production left in the tank in Seattle. And then we got to talk about some quarterback news because there's still a couple of guys available that many are keeping tabs on. The first is Russell Let's Weld Wilson, who was previously with the Steelers last year after a not-so-great stint in Denver. Though, to be honest, his last year with the Broncos was honestly not bad. 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. I mean, I'll take that. Why not? Anyway, he then started 11 games with the Steelers and went 6-5 during that time. And even though Pittsburgh now has DK Metcalf as another solid option, they may not want Russell Wilson back because of another quarterback. And Russell Wilson, anyway, himself is currently scheduled to visit with the Cleveland Browns on Thursday, so tomorrow. Then he's going to visit with the New York Giants on Friday. Well, that's pretty interesting. The Browns just traded for Kenny Pickett, but Russ would definitely be a better option there. Deshaun Watson is most likely not playing in 2025, and maybe never again after rupturing his Achilles a second time, so Cleveland would be wise to try and retain him. The Giants also need a quarterback because Tommy DeVito is fun, but he's not really that guy, and they obviously moved on from Daniel Jones last year. The problem is, most of these teams would prefer to have Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson. I don't think Rodgers is interested at all in Cleveland, so they would be wise to do all they can to get Russell Wilson, in my opinion. I'll speak more on that in a moment, but speaking of Rodgers, he was officially released by the Jets today, and they take on $49 million. Good God, in dead money to do so. Most of that is going to hit in 2026, but still, that is a big ol' yikes. And with Aaron Rodgers now free, he's reportedly taking his time and pondering life on a beach with a cute little blanket and headphones as he decides if he wants to still play or retire. If he does want to keep playing, he's deciding between the Steelers and the Giants. It's less about money at this point. That's what's being reported, but we all know money moves mountains, and more about Aaron Rodgers' personal preferences. You just know the guy is soaking this attention up. Let's be honest here. If I'm him, though, I'm taking the Steelers. I mean, how is this even a debate? DK Metcalf, you just got him. You got George Pickens, Calvin Austin III, and tight end Pat Freiermuth. Sounds good to me, especially combined with that defense and the stable, great coach in Mike Tomlin. Plus, they made the playoffs last year. I mean, maybe the Giants would have a stronger offer put out to Rodgers. They're just in a bit of a pickle here, because if they end up waiting on the possibility of Aaron Rodgers, yet he decides to choose Pittsburgh over them and Russell Wilson goes to Cleveland because the Giants are hesitant to pull the trigger, what on earth are they going to do? I mean, they do have the 3rd overall pick in the draft, so you could either take Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, depending on who's available, but Cleveland has pick number 2, so they could easily sign Russell Wilson and still draft a quarterback themselves. I mean, Deshaun Watson's contract is absolute hell, and if he's not playing again, Russell Wilson is not really a long-term option here, so they could very well draft a quarterback still. But of all teams right now in the NFL, the Giants, in my opinion, are in one of the most unique predicaments here. GM Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll are on their last legs there after all, so winning now is imperative. That's probably why they really want Aaron Rodgers, because he would give them the greatest chance to win now. The Steelers would also look a bit silly after trading for DK Metcalf, and with Justin Fields now a Jet, if Russell Wilson signed with either the Giants or Browns and Aaron Rodgers decides to, I guess, go with the Giants or retire, what the heck is Pittsburgh going to do? They have pick 21 in the draft, so that's not really going to cut it for a QB in this year's draft class. It may very well be Aaron Rodgers or bust, so they better hope he decides to play there, because that may be the only legit option they have for 2025. And by this point in the video, some of you may be sitting there saying, Cole, what about Kirk Cousins? You haven't even mentioned him at all. Well, the issue with Kirk Cousins is the Falcons are basically saying, hey, they're going to keep him through Sunday's deadline and pay him the $10,000 million that he's due, which is a fully guaranteed $10 million roster bonus, which is going to make him a pretty expensive backup. Many thought they might try to trade him before that deadline and maybe opt to save that $10 million. Well, no. The Falcons said they're going to hold on to him as the backup. Ian Rappaport said today that he thinks they're going to hold on to Kirk Cousins through the season. God forbid Michael Penix gets hurt or another starting quarterback from another team. That's when they'll say, hey, we got a guy, Kirk Cousins. Give us a 3rd-round pick and you can have him. So they think he's actually more valuable to hold on to now and then maybe save him for later if, God forbid, a QB gets hurt somewhere around the NFL. With all that being said, let me know your thoughts on the Kirk Cousins situation, I guess, but also, who do you think is going to land where between Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, and which team do you think it ends up being, and which team ends up getting screwed? And with that, I'll see y'all next time.